everybody. Shabbat Shalom. It's been a little while between our internet being out a few weeks ago from that massive storm to last week joining together for Rosh Hashanah since we've seen each other for a typical Friday night. This Friday is Shabbat tonight and tomorrow, the Shabbat between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, where we think extra hard about forgiveness and how we can repair ourselves as people. And so, thrilled to have Karen Nielsen Anson joining me on the Bima, and we will get started with our service.
Shabbat Shalom, Rabbi.
Shabbat Shalom.
It's so nice to be here. We realize it's still a virtual world, but we're still so grateful that we do get to connect with each other, at least virtually, and bring in Shabbat together. Shabbat Shalom, Maya Hayom. Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom. Ya Elai, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya Elai, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, Shabbat Shalom. Ya Elai, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya Elai, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, Shabbat Shalom. Ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya Elai, ya Elai, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya Elai, ya Elai, ya la 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 la, ya Elai, ya Elai, ya Elai, la la la, ya Elai, ya Elai, ya la 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 la, ya Elai, ya Elai, ya Elai, la la la, ya Elai, ya Elai. Keep our word, keep our word, keep our word, keep our word. Ya la la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la ya la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la ya la, ya la 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 la, ya la ya la, ya la la la, ya la ya la, ya la 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 la, ya la ya la, ya la 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 la, ya la ya la. Keep our word, keep our word, keep our word, keep our word. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
We welcome those Shabbat angels among us. Join with me in singing Shalom Aleichem. Shalom Aleichem. Getting my people here. Here we go. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharei, Malachei Elyon, 2nd, 5th, and 9th verse of Lecha Dodi. Lecha lecha dodi, likrat likrat kala, pene pene Shabbat nekavela. Lecha lecha dodi, likrat likrat kala, pene pene Shabbat nekavela. Shamor bizakur bidibur echad, Hishmi anu elam yuchad, Adonai echad, Ushemo echad. L'shem ol tiferet b'lipti la 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 chadoti likrat likrat kala pene pene Shabbat nekavela lecha lecha dodi likrat likrat kala pene pene Shabbat nekavela likrat Shabbat lekuven elcha ki hi v'kor ha'bracha merosh nekidem nesucha Tov ma'aseh b'machshava letchila la 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 chadoti likrat likrat kala pene pene Shabbat nekavela lecha lecha dodi likrat likrat kala pene pene Shabbat nekavela hitori hitori tiva ori kumi ori Devari, Kavod Adonai al Yadnik la 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 Chadodi, Likrat Likrat Kala, Pene Pene Shabbat Nekavela, Lecha Lecha Dodi, Likrat Likrat Kala, Pene Pene Shabbat Nekavela. We rise and we face the door welcoming the Shabbat bride. Believe Shalom. Ad keret ba'ala, gam b'simcha u'b'tzala, tokamone am segula, boi kala, la 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 chadoti, likrat likrat kala, pene pene Shabbat nekavela, lecha lecha dodi, likrat likrat kala, pene pene Shabbat nekavela la 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 chadoti, likrat likrat kala, pene pene Shabbat nekavela, lecha lecha dodi, likrat likrat kala, pene pene Shabbat nekavela. How wonderful it is to have you here in the sanctuary with me, Rabbi, and to have you here with me virtually. Together we can bring in Shabbat, Kabbalat Shabbat, with song. Won't you please sing with me? Hine ma tovu manayim, shevet achim gam yad. Hine ma tovu manayim, shevet achim gam yad. Shevet achim gam yad, hine matov. Shevet achim gam yad, hine matov u'manayim. Shevet achim gam yad, hine matov u'manayim. Shevet achim gam yad, hine matov, hine matov. Yadadai, 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 hine matov, hine matov. Yadadai, 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 hine matov u'manayim. Shevet achim gam yad, hine matov u'manayim. Shevet achim gam yad. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom. Let me see. Now that welcome to everybody with Hine Matov, we go now. It's been a few weeks for me, so I'm trying to remember to Sadiq Katamar. Thank you. are on page 140. Page 140. Sadikata hamar yifrach ke'erez bavanon yizkei shetulim bevet Adonai behatzrot Eloheinu yafrichu od yinuvum beseva Shenim verananim yehiyu lehagid ki yashar Adonai suri velo avlatapo.
Thank you.
Page 144. Yitkadav Yitkadash Shemei Rabbah Ve'amadi Brachir Tevim Lich Malchute V'chayechon Yomechon Uvhayedecho Be'Yisrael Bagala Bagala Uvizmahan Kahariv V'imeru Amen Yehi Shmei Rabbah Mevarach Le'alamo me'omaya Yitbarach Yitbarach V'yishtabach V'yibar V'yishmam V'yinaseh V'yithadar V'yitaleh V'yitalal Shemei D'Kudusha B'reichu Le'elam Mikol Berchata V'shirata Tushbechata V'nechemata Damiram Be'alma V'imeru. Amen. We rise for our call to worship, the Baruch Hu.
Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach HaMevorach Le'olam Va'ed. HaMevorach HaMevorach Le'olam Va'ed. You may be seated. I'll choose this reading for this week for Mari Varvin because this is a week where we are supposed to be changing ourselves for the better. This Shabbat Shuvah, returning to be better people and pledging to do so as we enter this new year. This is an hour of change. Within it, we stand uncertain on the border of life. Shall we draw back or cross over? Where shall our hearts turn? Shall we draw back, my brother, my sister, or cross over? This is the hour of change, and within it we stand quietly on the border of life. What lies before us? Shall we draw back, my brother, my sister, or cross over? Baruch atah Adonai, Amariv, Aravim. We now turn to Ahavat Olam.
Ahavat Olam Beit Yisrael Amcha Ahavta Torah mitzvot Chukim u'mishpatim Otanu limata Al ken Adonai Eloheinu V'shochveinu u'kumeinu Natziach b'chekecha V'nismach b'divrei Toratecha Uv'mitzvotecha ובהם נגע יומם ולילה, ואהבתך אל תסיר ממנו לעולמים ולעולמים. ברוך אתה אדוני, אוהב עמו ישראל. ברוך אתה אדוני, אוהב עמו ישראל. יה לה 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 לה, יה לה 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 לה, יה לה 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 לה, יה לה 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 לה. And that brings us to the Shema. Yes? Awesome. And I like to put a shin in my fingers, hold them up to my forehead. Won't you please join me affirming the oneness of God? Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Rabbi, won't you please lead us in the Haftarah?
Absolutely. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך. והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ושוכבך וקומך וקשרתם לאות על ידיך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי והייתם קדושים אלוהיהם. אני אדוני אלוהיהם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות להם אלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיהם Adonai Elohim Emet. For our ancestors, as they were crossing the sea, they had never experienced change before. Their whole lives, every day, they knew what to expect. They were going to get up, be a slave, and then go to bed, and wake up and be a slave and go to bed. And every single day was going to be the same. There was never going to be any upward mobility, any better days ahead. But at the moment that they stood at sea, preparing to cross it, they were scared because they realized this was something new, something different. And as they crossed that sea, they experienced something miraculous, the ability to change themselves, their mindset, and also their tomorrows. And so for us, as we are in this Shabbat Shuvah, this week of returning and changing and turning inwards in ourselves and asking how we can grow and improve, let's think too about how, just like our ancestors, we can change our mindsets in order to change our destinies, our families, and our tomorrows. We sing together, Michamocha, page 158.
Rabbi, can I give you the timbrels so you can accent this song? I love it when you do that. We
Sure.
all find ourselves in narrow places, and we find ways to encounter freedom, and that's what this song reminds us of.
Sounds
Yum
good.
bum bum ba yum bum 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 ba yum bum bum ba yum bum 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 yum bum bum ba yum bum 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 yum bum 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 yum bum 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 bum. Mi chamocha be'elim Adonai, mi chamocha neder b'kodesh, nora tehilot oseh pele, nora tehilot oseh pele. מלאכותך ראו בניך, בוקי הים לפני משה ומרים, זה אלי ענו ויאמרו, זה אלי ענו ויאמרו, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. Yum bum bum ba yum bum 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 ba yum bum bum ba yum bum 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 yum bum bum ba yum bum 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 yum bum bum ba yum bum 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 bum.
We turn now to the Hashkivenu on page 160.
Ufros aleinu sukkot, sukkot, shalom echa. As I look outside, I see the boards piled high to build the Kol Ami Sukkah, and at this moment, it occurs to me that our sukkah is each other. Our shelter of peace during this time of pandemic can be each other. Spread over us. Spread over us. Spread over us a shelter of ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la la ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la la ufros aleinu sukkot. Shalom echa. And won't you turn with me now, for those of you who have prayer books, to 162 for Vishamru. Vishamru b'nei Israel et ha-Shabbat לעשות את השבת לדורתם ברית עולם. בני ובן בני ישראל, אותי לעולם, אותי לעולם, אותי לעולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורתם ברית עולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורתם ברית עולם. וביום השביעי שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורתם ברית עולם.
Page 164. We rise for Amidah.
Na 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 Adonai. Adonai na 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 sfatai tiftach. Na 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 ufi
Taitita Ufiat Kitihilate Ha Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzhak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, El Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Hasadim Tovim, Bekonei Hakol, Bezocher Hasei Avot v'Imaot, Umevi Gula Lifnei B'neihem, Leman Shemo Be'ava, Melech Ozer U'Moshia U'Magin, Baruch atah Adonai, Magin Avraham, Bezrat Sarah, Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai, Mechaye HaKol atah Rav Le'oshia, Morid Hatal, Mechalkel Ha'im Bechesed, Mechaye HaKol Berachamim Rabim, Somech Noflim, Berofeh Holim, Umatir Asurim, Umekahayem Emunato, Rishene Afar, Micha Mocha, Baal Gevurot, Umido Melach, Melech Memi, Umechaye, Umatzniach Yeshua, V'ne'eman Atalecha Hayot HaKol, Baruch atah Adonai, Mechaye HaKol, Atah Kadosh, V'Shem HaKadosh, V'Shim B'chol Yom Yehalalu, Chatzela, Baruch atah Adonai, Ha'el HaKadosh. This time you may continue silently on your own.
Shalom bimroma, uyase shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imru, amen. Yase shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu v'al 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 kol Yisrael.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
I'll take over this music stand a little bit,
Yeah.
since we got this camera over here pointing at us. Well, one of the reasons that I'm Jewish, something I relate to in Judaism, is that nobody is perfect. And I feel this is a message that's emphasized in Judaism. And that's also one of the reasons, I guess, why I'm not a Christian. Now, I've been told a few times in my life when people have tried to explain to me how it's so clear that Jesus is the Messiah, and I say, I just don't believe that. I've had people who've gone frustrated and said, well, that's because God blinded you to the truth. And I kept hearing this. I've heard this a few times. And so I looked up what the source for that was. And in the Christian Bible, there is a verse that, as punishment for alleged Jewish killing of Jesus, that the descendants of Jewish people would be blinded to seeing that Jesus was the Messiah, and therefore they could not be saved or redeemed. And that's where that comes from. Now, many Christians I know today don't believe that and are more progressive, but for some more fundamentalist people, there's a belief that I cannot comprehend that Jesus could be a Messiah or messianic figure because God has put this punishment on them. Now, for me, though, that's not the truth. For me, I'm not a Christian because Jesus as a messianic figure doesn't resonate with me for a couple of reasons. For one, my idea of a messianic figure is somebody who will bring in peace into the world. Where, like it says in Isaiah, the lion will lay down with the lamb, and we will beat our spears and our swords into pruning hooks and plowshares. And that's kind of my idea of what a Messiah will bring. And we haven't seen peace in our world over the past 2,000 years. But also, where I personally don't connect so much with the idea of Jesus as a Messiah is the concept that Jesus was a perfect being. I cannot wrap my head around that because perhaps for me, I can't imagine perfection, and I can't imagine a person being perfect, a person who can die, a person who has bodily functions still, a person who, helping one person, might inadvertently disadvantage another person. I just can't wrap my head around the idea of somebody being perfect. But for Christians, many Christians have told me that the reason Jesus was sent to the world was to give people something tangible to relate to with God. And if they could see God in human form, then they could understand God better and connect to God more so than they were able to do before. But as I said, for me, that just doesn't resonate because I cannot fathom a perfect person. And this is a message that's emphasized in our Bible. Let's take a look at some of the most respected people in our Bible. There was Sarah, who, like I talked about on Rosh Hashanah Day, treated Hagar unjustly. There was Rebecca, who lied to her husband. Rachel, who steals from her own father. And Miriam, who was a gossip. These are our most respected women probably in the Torah. And don't get me started on Eve too and some of her shortcomings. And then when we look at the most righteous men in our Bible, we see Noah, a man who was supposedly the most righteous man, according to the Torah, of his time, who was a drunkard. And Abraham and Isaac, who schemed and tried to con leaders of other tribes. And then there was Jacob, who might go down as the worst brother ever, or way up there. If he doesn't get that award, his sons do. And there was Moses, who had a bad temper. Aaron, who collected the gold to be used for the golden calf. And David, not in the Torah, but later on, David, who committed adultery and murder. And these are the most respected figures in our Bible. These are the ones who we still name our sons and daughters after as an homage for how important they were in our history. And we see that too even with some of the leaders of our people in more recent times. Yitzhak Rabin, for instance, my personal favorite Israeli prime minister, who's probably my hero, who resigned in disgrace in the 1970s from being prime minister after having a foreign bank account and being caught in a scandal. Golda Meir, who wasn't prepared and ignored warning signs for the Yom Kippur War that led to her resignation. And Ariel Sharon, who was charged with war crimes. We see that many, many of our leaders are imperfect. And even we have to ask with our own God, is God perfect? Because how could a perfect God look at the world that God created and the people that God created and say, this isn't working. I need to start over and send the flood of Noah and then destroy the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah later? Was this God admitting that even God can make mistakes sometimes? But this message that we get from the Torah is that maybe in Judaism, our leaders are supposed to be imperfect. Perhaps they're supposed to be relatable. Now, I'm no biblical figure by any means, but on the high holidays, we have the Hineni prayer, where the cantor and the rabbi stand before the congregation and say, look how imperfect I am. Let me make this prayer on behalf of my community, even though I'm without merit and I'm not worthy of doing so. We find that people, when they can admit that they're flawed, can actually be more inspiring and more relatable. Just in our own country, President Kennedy, who had such high approval ratings when he was early in his presidency, made a tremendous blunder, which was ordering the Bay of Pigs invasion of Cuba, which did not work out well at all, as these commandos that were sent into Cuba ran across a coral reef and were tripping and falling, and all of them were captured in what was considered a tremendous, tremendous blunder and failed operation. And this was a humiliating moment for President Kennedy. And yet, remarkably, after this, his approval ratings actually went up. And when people were studying, how could this be? How could a president that ordered such a failed operation, who made such a huge mistake, where there was such lack of intelligence, how could his approval go up after that? What they discovered was that people liked him more because they found that they could connect with him more and saw him as a fellow human being, one who was flawed. And the message that I think that we can learn in Judaism when analyzing this and analyzing our biblical characters is that each of us are imperfectly perfect. When we make, or perfectly imperfect, however you would choose to look at it, I guess that's probably a better way of putting it, perfectly imperfect. When we make mistakes, those mistakes are opportunities to learn and grow, to become something new and exciting. For instance, when Moses lost his temper and struck the taskmaster, he went out into the desert and rediscovered who he was. That was certainly a flawed moment for him, but one where he was able to grow and become something bigger from it. And likewise, a question that's often asked is if Adam and Eve were not allowed to eat from the tree of knowledge, then why did the tree of knowledge even exist? Why did God put it there? And there's a theory that perhaps God knew they were going to eat from the tree of knowledge. God knew that they were going to be tempted. And God knew that they were going to make a mistake, and that that mistake would open their eyes and help them see things around them and learn and grow from such a mistake. Maybe it was a blessing more than it was a curse. And what we see, though, in these characters in the Bible, all of them, by the way, I don't know anybody in the world who's as flawed as King David. I don't know anyone really as flawed as Sarah or Abraham, who've done some things they've done. A lot of these characters would be the most flawed people I've ever met in my life, or way up there. But God still loves them. And we revere these people in our tradition, despite, or maybe even because, of their imperfection. For us as Jews, I think there's nothing less relatable than perfection. And there's nothing more relatable than imperfection. As we analyze this week in Shabbat Shuvah, our imperfections, let us remember that we're imperfectly perfect. Or like I said, perfectly imperfect. However you choose to look at yourself. And the idea of Shuvah, which literally the root of that means return, is that we can return to situations that we were in before, and we can return to those and make different decisions. In doing so, we show God that we are something better than perfect. We're a work in progress. Something that is working towards the unattainable goal of perfection. Something that is seeking to improve itself. Being perfect is effortless. It's just what you are. If you need to put effort into trying to be perfect, then you aren't perfect. Not naturally, at least. Being imperfect, but striving towards perfection, is a sign of ambition, and it's a recognition of holiness. The holiness that we seek to attain as we enter a new year, trying to make ourselves better this year. A version 2.0 of yourself than you were at Rosh Hashanah last year. Shana Tova and Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat shalom. Thank you for that.
Lead us in maybe return again, and then make some announcements.
And thank you, Rabbi, for inviting me to be a part of your wonderful Friday night Kabbalah Shabbat celebrations. And thank you, gentle watcher and listener, for putting up with my imperfections. I'm learning so much as I go, and I also so want this year, my teshuvah is to learn more, and I invite you, Rabbi, and anyone who's watching, to send me melodies that for you feel like home, that you would like to see me bring into our Friday night services. I'm always open to learning more melodies. So may we all return to the land of our souls. May we use this opportunity to see how we can improve, and may we make our apologies and our fasts gently. Return again, return again, return to the land of your soul. Return again, return again, return to the land of your soul. Return to what you are, return to who you are,
conclude our service, some announcements. Hope you enjoyed your Rosh Hashanah experience with us. We will be having Yom Kippur services on Sunday night and throughout the day, Monday. You should have received links for that if you've either bought a ticket or if you are a member in good standing of the synagogue. If you would like to join us, feel free to purchase a ticket on our website if you haven't done so already. With that as well, a couple of things. There will be led by both me and Karen at 11:30 on Monday, a family tot service, kids service. It'll be a lot of fun. Come join us for that live. It's on Zoom. And then from 1:30 to 3:30, we are having some scholars who are going to share thoughts with us from 1:30 to 2:30. There's going to be Dr. Stephen Windmuller talking about next month's, or 5 weeks from now's election and Jewish views on the election. Dr. Windmuller is a world-renowned political scientist, and so I think that will be fascinating. And then right after him is Dr. Bruce Haynes, who is a professor at UC Davis, who will be talking to us about African American history, violence against African American communities, and Jewish response to that. And so both very timely, topical discussions related to us improving ourselves over the high holidays. So please join us for that. On Monday night, Monday evening will be really nice. We're going to have pre-recorded our Mincha and Yizkor services, but we will be doing our Ne'ilah service live. And there are a few options for you with that. If you would like, we will be, you might see Cantor Loeb's lectern up here. He will be seen up here, and we will allow people to come and have a moment in front of the ark to pray. You have to pre-register for that, and that will start around 7:10 or so p.m. on Monday. If you want to come early, we have extended Wi-Fi into our parking lot, so you'll be able to watch the Yizkor and Mincha services on your phone or whatever device you have, and then you'll be able to come in and have a moment in front of the ark. This will be carefully orchestrated. Like I said, you need to pre-register for this. You need to be wearing a mask and following directions from the ushers as we try and keep everybody safe while giving you that moment. Or you can watch live from your home or wherever. If you are watching the Ne'ilah service, just note that there might be a couple minutes in between the end of Yizkor and the turning on of the Ne'ilah service as the camera modes switch from pre-recorded to live. So if we disappear, don't panic, just reload in a couple minutes. Other than that, a few other announcements. On Sunday, we are going to be building the sukkah. Again, please wear a mask, and we're going to be standing far apart from each other, but you're welcome to come 9 a.m. Sunday morning to help Larry Green and me build our sukkah. It should be fun. And then we're hoping that next Friday for Sukkot, we can maybe do an outdoor service, allowing people to come in person, but look for a registration link if that's happening. There will be a registration link, and you'll need to register in advance, and we will be limiting the number of people who can attend that, again, due to safety. I want to thank everybody for all their support during this time. We're grateful to you, and as we begin a new year in a challenging situation, but I know one that we can get through together. And thank you again to Karen for leading us so beautifully this evening.
Oh, I'm delighted to do so, and I know I speak for all of us when I express my gratitude directly here on the Bima to Rabbi Spector for the countless hours that you and Cantor Emeritus Loeb put into the beautiful high holiday services.
Oh, thank you.
And I know that
It took a village. It took a village.
It took a village,
There were
and
a lot.
you personally put so many hours into that, and we're so grateful for your
thank
work
you.
on that.
It's a labor of love.
Thank you so much.
We're going to turn now to the Aleinu on page 586. And so please rise for the Elena. Sure. Lenu l'shabeach l'adon hakol v'atek yidu l'aliotzer b'reshit shehunotei shamayim v'yoser aretz u'moshavi karo b'shamayim mima'al u'shina tuzo b'govhei meromim u'Eloheinu einod v'anachnu korim u'mishtachavim u'modim Lifnei melech malchei hamachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu Shehunotei shamayim v'yosei haaretz u'Moshe v'ikara b'shamayim ima'ah u'shchina tuzo v'govhei meromim u'Eloheinu einod emet malkeinu efezuato Kakatu v'torato v'yadata yom v'hashivota elevavecha ki Adonai hu ha'Elohim v'shamayim ima'al ve'al ha'aretz mitachat einod Hakatuv b'toratecha Adonai imloch le'olam va'ed v'nemar v'haya Adonai lemelech al kol ha'aretz v'yom hahu yeh Adonai echad. And I just realized since it's been a few weeks that I screwed up earlier in the service. I'm sorry, we forgot to do the Misha Berach. So how about we turn, that was my fault, apologies. See, I'm imperfect too. Apologies before Yom Kippur. Let's turn our thoughts now to those who are in need of healing of the mind, body, and spirit with the Misha Berach, page 371.
So I'll go ahead and sing the first verse, and then I will pause, and Rabbi, if you could read those names, and we invite you also to say those names out loud for those individuals for whom you would like to send healing energy, healing prayers to. Mishe berach avotenu mikor habracha le'imotenu. May the source of strength who bless the ones before us help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen.
This week we think of these members of our community: Daniel ben Chaya, Elchanan Yitzhak ben Shimon Pinchas, Esther bat Malka, Gitalea bat Masha Chana, Golda bat Hindel Rochel, Michael ben Manya, Shifra Fega bat Rochel, Israel Isser ben Moshe, Israela bat Dana, Maureen Berry, Claire Cashmore, Denise Dobling, Alexander Dalwitz, Albert Goldberg, Will Goldman, Brenda Hartfigson, Sandy Kahn, Sharon Katz, Betty Linehan, Jamie Manson, Tyler Matthews, Janet Morley, Shari Pedersen, Cheryl Rothenberg, Gary Rubenstein, Jenna Salvati, Andrea Sanders, Marshall Sanders, Anel Santoyo, Jim Schalheim, Leon Shapashnikov, Penny Spector, Angela Stefani, Gloria Sussman, Gary Spivey, David Stern, Frida Schweitzer, Dustin Wallace, Harriet Wallace, and Judy Wolf. And if you have a name to add, I invite you to do so at this time. we pray for healing, but we know at the same time that for some people, when I regularly call the people who are on the Mishaberach list and their loved ones, and some people have their loved ones on the Mishaberach list with the hopes that they'll improve and heal, and other people have their loved ones on the Mishaberach list knowing that they won't get physically better, but recognizing that death can be a form of healing too. That we're all destined to die, and that death is better than a life of eternal sickness or constant pain. And at this time, we think of those who have come before, who are no longer physically among us, yet who have found peace in their souls and have passed on, yet still remain in our memories. This week in this Pirush Shloshim 30-day period of mourning, we think of Marcia Sargent, sister of Betsy Smith, and also Lois Eileen Dowsett, mother of David Dowsett. And we think also of these loved ones whose yortzites fall on this week. Jacob Appelman, Beatrice Arkey, Ben Arnovitz, Michael Aronoff, Rebecca Behrens, Lynn Bernstein, Annie Cowlett, Pearl Dorothy Clinton, Minnie Feldman, Lillian M. Finke, Arthur Frank, Elliot Goldstein, Samuel Green, James Hammock, David Hamlet, Marilyn Kantrowitz, Ike Kaplan, Max Kaufman, Galina Kopoleva, George Lemaire, Sidney Lubin, Edith Lux, Anna Maislish, Celia Margulies, Sharon Marinis, Sally Oswald, Pearl Pullman, Morris Rosen, Bernard Barney Rosenblum, Richard Rubin, Joe Scheffner, Irene Stone Tannenbaum, Richard Zabrowski, Leah Kushner-Zilberman, and Rennie Zuckert. If you have a name to add, I invite you to do so at this time.
We grieve the passing of Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who to many of us is a tzedek. And we know that her life will not only be a blessing, but will cause action.
Yitgadal, Yitgadash, Shemei Rabbah, Me'almad Yivrach Yirteh, V'yamlich Malchuteh, V'hayechon V'yomechon U'chayeh Dehol Beit Yisrael, V'agalal V'zman Kariv V'imru, Amen. Yehi Shmei Rabbah Mivrach Le'olam Omei Omayam, Yitvarach V'yishabach V'yifa'ar V'yitruman V'yitnaseh, V'yithadar V'yitaleh V'yitalal Shemei D'Kedushah B'rehu, Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nehemata, da'ami ram be'alma v'imru, amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru, amen. Osei shalom b'momav, uyasei shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru, amen. A source of peace and peace to all who are mourning, comfort breathed among us. And again, we say, Amen. We will conclude. What would you like to conclude with? Shalom, or what are you thinking? That's a great way to
I
conclude.
certainly could do a reprise of Oseh Shalom.
Whatever you
Or
want.
I'm just enamored with the tune I learned from you.
From me?
Yes, one of the first services I saw you do. So, and it turns out that it's a song that Deborah knew from camp. So
Well, we were
it's just
singing
a
earlier.
song that's just kind of stuck with me, and I just so appreciate you bringing it to my attention.